Ekam aksharam hridhi nirantaram bhasate swayam likyate katham. Hridaya kuhara madhye kevalam brahmamatram yaham aham sakshat atmarupena bhati hridhi vishamanasa svam Chinvata machyata pavana chalana rodha atmanishto bhavatvam. Deham brahmayavat jadatmakam aham puttirna tasyastyato naham tattata bhavashukti samaye siddha na saddha koham bhavayuta kuto varadhiya drishtatmanishta mana soham stupitaya arunachala shivaha purno vibhati swayam. Soham spurtitaya arunachala shivaha purno vibhati swayam. Namo Ramana. In this, the Thursday satsang from Ramana Maharshi Center for Learning, it has been our practice to read two verses selected for us from the work Guru Vachaka Kovai, the work by Muruganar Swamigal. After each verse reading is completed, there will be a short meditation on its meaning, and that will be followed by practice of self-inquiry for 10 minutes. After these two segments of verse reading, meditation on meaning, and the Atmavicharam practice are completed, there will be summing up remarks today by our own Dilip ji, and that shall be followed by the offering of Sri Ramanashtotram. The chanting will be by Vaibhav ji and Prarthnama, and the floral offerings shall be made by Shri Manjunath ji from right here. We begin this evening satsang by taking the first verse selected for us, verse number 306. We find this verse in the segment Investigation into Truth. The work itself consists of the initial prefatory verses followed by these three main segments: investigation into truth, then meditation on the truth, and the final segment is anubhava or experience of the truth. We find the verse 306 in the segment investigation into truth. The subsegment is worshipping the Guru. Worshipping the Guru, worshipping Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharishi, verse 306. For those who have the good fortune of living a life in which they take the feet of the Guru, the Supreme, as the sole target of their attention, a longing to merge with Shivam will flourish. That true devotion will itself become self. For those who have the good fortune of living a life in which they take the feet of the Guru, the Supreme, as the sole target of their attention, a longing to merge with Shivam will flourish. That true devotion will itself become the fire of jnana that will completely scorch to destruction the desires for the false, the non-self. What a beautiful verse on bhakti to the Guru's feet. Bhagavan says here through Muruganar Swamigal, for those who have the good fortune of living a life in which they take the feet of the Guru, the Supreme, as the sole target of their attention. So what is a true life of devotion to Bhagavan? Apart from his feet, no other goal is considered necessary. Muruganar Swamigal himself is exemplary in his devotion to Bhagavan. Once he is taken in Girivalam, must have been in his later years, much later years. He is taken around in Girivalam in their car by a devotee, I think. And the devotee wants to stop the car in some other Guru's place or some other ashram. And Muruganar says, immediately let me out. Immediately allow me to get out of the car and go my own way. Apart from Bhagavan, I don't see anyone else as worthy or having the necessity of being worshipped. Now, he of course offers all his knowledge and all his creativity in poetry and in language at the feet of Bhagavan by saying that I will not write about anyone else other than Bhagavan using my skills in language and poetry. There are great devotees of Bhagavan. Let us see, because the second part of the verse is very, what to say, very wonderful in nature. How bhakti itself can become the fire of jnana. That is something that is glorious. But we have seen it being demonstrated in the Satcharita of Bhagavan. Not once, but many times. Mudalayar Party is a devotee. Ramnath Brahmachari is a devotee. They don't see anything other than serving Bhagavan as the goal of their life. And Mudaliar party's devotion is narrated by David Godman in a video which is there in the YouTube. He says that for nearly 5 decades she takes food to Bhagavan. And there were, in the earlier part, there were years when God would test the devotee. Here, the Guru is the supreme. Ishvaro Guru Atme iti. Devotee to test, only to make that devotion into the fire so that it can scorch all the non-self. We will see that in Mudaliar party's life, that David Godman says there were years in the earlier parts of her sadhana that Bhagavan decides that this is too much of a trouble for her. And there is another devotee also, HML, who also does the same thing. So to prevent them from the practices, he himself says that he would, from Virupaksha cave, go away up the hill, right at the time that they could be expected. Once or twice, they have had difficulty, but they have still gone up the hill with their luggage and served him, and then only had their food. Then they devise means. They set up 2-3 other devotees as spies and ask them to find out in which direction Bhagavan is going. And irrespective of how much ever he has climbed, Mudaliar party is supposed to be very old even when she starts the sadhana. I can't fathom what age she must have been in her later years. Bhagavan says she was fragile even when the sadhana of serving food began. But she would go, she would not fail. She would go up the hill, take the luggage with her, give the food to, offer the food to Bhagavan, and then only have the food. Now in later years, we find her full of fire of jnana, and we see many incidents. I have so gleefully narrated them here in this satsang, and we will never tire of narrating the glory of those devotees. Once she serves too much food from what she has brought on Bhagavan's leaf plate, and Bhagavan is taken aback apparently, and he says, if you serve so much, then how am I to do justice to the ashram food also, which also I should take, isn't it? And she responds by saying that, oh Bhagavan, what is more or what is less? It is all in the mind only, isn't it? So go ahead and have it. And see how that relationship with God, that Bhagavan smiles and says, she is now repaying me in my own medicine, he says. That the Sayujya, the oneness with the Supreme, is so apparent that there is so much saulabhya in that relationship, so much freedom, that she is able to tell like that. And Ramnath Brahmachari, who receives the knock from Bhagavan to affirm that he is indeed experiencing this Purana inside, he is once accosted by a very strong man, very tall and gigantic person, who is apparently in a great huff against Ramnath Brahmachari. And he literally holds Ramnath Brahmachari, who is very puny, by his shirt, lifts him off the ground and says in his anger, do you know who I am? And Brahmachari, without losing his cool, responds, we have all come here only to know that, only to try and find that. And I suppose that whole situation dissolves in that feeling of jnana and gets resolved. But how the singular devotion, the singular surrender to the feet of Bhagavan scorches all the non-self is so interesting that in Jnana Marga, we see those thoughts and let them go. We see those thoughts and let them go by holding the Bhagavan's feet as the I thought within us, the I within us. For whom is this thought? Who am I? And in Bhakti Marga, irrespective of the thought, however huge or abstract it may be, it is surrendered to Bhagavan. They have no care how big it may be. It may be that the king is coming, that the prime minister of the country is coming. There would be this incident where Surinagamal will be there and the president of the country, I think then Radhakrishnan, or he is having some high post at that time. This is after the independence. He comes and literally everybody marches out with him. When he leaves the hall, everybody without exception marches out with him. But Surinagama alone remains. And when asked by Bhagavan, she says, I don't find anyone more worthy of staying with than you, or any power that requires attention from my side. She is unmoved when another great guru comes and is passing by the Girivalam path and everybody leaves. She alone remains in the hall again. That is how, apart from the Lord's feet, they don't see any other power. They are not distracted or overpowered by anything else. Time and place and yama and everything is overcome by them as by surrender to the Lord's feet, to the Guru's feet. What else is that but jnana? That is the scorching flame of jnana. The bhakti itself, it burns everything else. That no other thing other than the feet of the Guru, the Supreme, is now occupying them. Everything else is burnt. None of them move them even in the slightest. Pokum varavumil poduveli. They come to that space where no other object of interest is there, and thereby they merge in the Supreme and be one with the Self. It is such an incredibly beautiful journey where one sees the bhakti, the devotion, become itself the fire of jnana, blaze everything. Take the sadhaka through the tapoloka, where the neti is done by the jnanis. The bhakta, just holding the feet of the Lord, crosses that neti loka. And somehow, inexplicably, by the total grace of Guru, finds in the same place as the jnani. That is why Bhagavan says, there is absolutely no difference between surrender and jnana. With Bhagavan's immense grace, let us do that consciously. The same Bhagavan, who is worthy of all the devotion that one can gather, has given this Upadesha, that whenever a thought arises, do not pursue it with another thought, do not try to complete it, but inquire, for whom is this thought? The answer will come, this thought is for me. Immediately inquire, who am I? And as it is our Guru's Upadesham, let us carry it out with all devotion and surrender to Bhagavan. For the next 10 minutes, we will sit in Atma Ucharam. नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय। We continue the satsang by taking up the second verse, meditation on the truth. The verse number is 830, 830, and the subhead is the greatness of renunciation. the greatness of renunciation. Verse number 830. Just as a ripened fruit separates effortlessly from the tree and falls, when a sadhaka who is aiming to merge his mind in the Supreme attains maturity, he will definitely renounce family life as unsalted gruel unless his unfavorable prarabdha stands in the way. 830. The greatness of renunciation. Just as a ripened fruit separates effortlessly from the tree and falls, when a sadhaka who is aiming to merge his mind in the Supreme attains maturity, he will definitely renounce family life as unsalted gruel unless his unfavorable prarabdha stands in the way. There is a note. This is from Crumbs from his table. Question. I have a good mind to resign from service and remain constantly with Sri Bhagwan. Bhagwan's reply is, Bhagwan is always with you, in you, and you are yourself Bhagwan. Bhagwan is with you, in you, and you are yourself Bhagwan. To realize this, it is neither necessary to resign your job nor run away from home. Renunciation does not imply apparent divesting of costumes, family ties, homes, etc. Renunciation does not imply apparent divesting of costumes, family ties, homes, etc., but renunciation of desires, affection, and attachment. There is no need to resign your job, but resign yourself to Him, the bearer of the burden of all. One who renounces desires, etc., actually merges in the world and expands his love to the whole universe. Expansion of love and affection would be a far better term for a true devotee of God than renunciation. For one who renounces the immediate ties actually extends the bonds of affection and love to a wider world beyond the borders of caste, creed, and race. A sannyasi who apparently casts away his clothes and leaves his home does not do so out of aversion to his immediate relations, but because of the expansion of his love to others around him. When this expansion comes, one does not feel that one is running away from the home, but drops from it like a ripe fruit from a tree. Till then, it would be folly to leave one's home or his job. I'll read the last part. When this expansion comes, one does not feel that one is running away from home, but drops from it like ripe fruit from a tree. Till then, it would be folly to leave one's home or his job. So we get back to the verse. Just as a ripened fruit separates effortlessly from the tree and falls, when a sadhaka who is aiming to merge his mind in the Supreme attains maturity, he will definitely renounce family life as unsalted gruel unless his unfavorable prarabdha stands in the way. Now, the verse and the description, Bhagavan describes how that happens, that one need not leave the family or the work, but all one has to do is leave the desire and attachment. Now that happens naturally when one starts doing Atma Ucharam, irrespective of whether one is in family life or as a renunciate. Bhagavan says, even as a sannyasi, if you feel you are a sannyasi, then you are not a sannyasi. If as a householder, you don't identify that I am a householder, then you are really a sannyasi. So in Bhagavan, sannyasa takes on a deeper connotation. Merely changing of dress, merely changing of places is not the key, but an actual in consciousness within, where Bhagavan says that the consciousness is no more encumbered by its close contacts alone. Now, to the householder who is so attached to the household nature, all his world is there in the 5 or 6 relationships. Whereas somebody who practices Atma Vicharam and is practicing even the study of Ulladhu understands that the consciousness within is being freed from the dualities and triads, especially the duality of ignorance and knowledge. The consciousness within is being freed from the first person, second person, and third person. The consciousness within is being freed from time and space. The consciousness within is renouncing both free will and fate as non-existent and the self alone as existent. And that's why Bhagavan says, now one sees the whole universal connection. The Manigalil Sarad, the Ishvara who connects everything, is now visible. Not only the family connections, the whole universe is seen as one connection, and everything is a miracle. Every moment, every breath is happening because of that infinite connection and the connecting energy of Ishvara. So surrender of one's doership, surrender of one's immediate relationships alone to that Ishvara Shakti gives Sayujya with the Ishvara, and that is true renunciation, because every moment is lived synchronously, every moment is lived miraculously. We don't know what a particular word is uttered from the mouth. There is no connection between the mind and that word. From where it comes, how it comes, all this is surrendered to that Ishvara Shakti, and true renunciation is there in the very way in which one lives. The very consciousness within is transformed, and all doership is completely removed, and actual dropping away from family life. What is family life? Being attached to them. Let my own people alone get a better deal. Somehow, oh God, save my daughter alone. All these thoughts fall away. The reality of the connecting energy supporting the entire universe of all trillions of beings together is understood, experienced, and abided in. And one's own doership and the silliness of saying that me or my family should be protected is seen and dropped. That which is running everything, will it not take care of your few connections? Is it going to listen to you and then only take care of them? That is why Bhagavan says that like a fruit falling from a tree, the ripening and the maturity of sadhana, it removes us from the proximate relationships and connects us with everything, and takes us beyond the connections. In the self, even the feeling of Manigalil Sarade is not there. That there is an Ishvara Shakti connecting everything, all the trillions of beings are being connected by Ishvara Shakti. That thought is also not there. The abidance in the self is absolute renunciation. Somebody tells Bhagavan, I feel like renouncing everything. Bhagavan says, this is only a thought. You abide in the self has already renounced everything. Because in the self, there is no other. There is nothing other than the self for the self to renounce. That is the truth of renunciation. That will be the experience of the Atmavichari when the journey in who am I is complete and the who am I thought itself gets burnt up in the jnana. There one is abiding in the self. The self has renounced everything by absorbing everything into itself. The self luminous self is indeed everything. The self luminous self is indeed nothing. So it is the whole gamut that is there in the self luminous self. That is the truth and greatness of renunciation also. With Bhagavan's immense grace, let us sit in practice of that true renunciation, that absolute renunciation of abiding in the self by the practice of Atma-ucharan for the next 10 minutes. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramana. Namo Ramana. I request Dilip ji to give us the summing up remarks. Namo Ramana, sir.
Namo Ramana. In the two verses Bhagavan blessed us to meditate on this evening. The first one, verse 306, gave a lot of clarity in our sadhana, even though it is more, seems to be emphasizing on the bhakti, how bhakti itself will remove all the non-self, the bhakti to the one-pointed bhakti to the Guru in due course removes all the non-self, the attachment to the non-self, and brings about the pure gnana. But as sadhakas, for us, as Ramakrishna Paramahamsa says, instead of digging in 10 feet of well at multiple places, if you had done it in one place, you would have found the water. As sadhaka, in whatever path, whether it is devotion, whether it is gnana marga or japa, or yoga, the one-pointed effort is very, very important. And we see wherever there is that one-pointed effort, especially in devotion to the Sadguru, we see that miraculously, it's not the effort that brings about the change, it is the grace of that Sadguru. When Nandakumar ji beautifully narrated all the stories of Muruganar Swami, Ramnath Brahmachari, and Mudliyar Pati, Suri Nagamma, about how the transformation came in their life due to their one-pointed devotion to Bhagavan. I was only thinking about Giri, who also served Shankaracharya with one-pointed devotion. He would take care of all the needs of his Sadguru. And one day when Shankaracharya was waiting before he could start his discourse to his disciple, and one of the disciples asked whom the master was waiting for. And Shankaracharya said, I am waiting for Giri. He has gone to wash the clothes and I am waiting for him. And the disciple will say, he doesn't have much of the intellect, he doesn't grasp whatever you say. What is the point in waiting for him? And Shankaracharya immediately blesses the Sadguru, the grace, and Giri would come out as with Totaka Chandas singing about his Sadguru. So for all of us, as sadhakas, only the one-pointed effort is that we can continue to do. That's all that we need to do. We need not see or measure our progress. It's not because of our effort, it's sheerly by the grace of the Sadguru that all the non-self, all that divisions that we hold on to is removed by that grace. It was very beautifully brought out through the life incidents of many devotees in Ramana Satcharitam. And Nandakumarji assured that continues to happen for all of us. And therefore, we need not worry, will it happen now or not? And in the second verse, wherein it was brought out clearly that once the fruit ripens, that it will automatically get separated from the samsara. And the ripening of it, or the, let us say, what makes us hold on to the samsara, or the unripe part of it, is all the attention that we give to the world that makes us hold on to, stick to it. And it is only in the self, as Nandakumarji again emphasized, that the self here and now is free of this stickiness. And therefore, by attending to the self, which we do in Atma Vichara by inquiring to whom is this thought, who am I, and get back, or put our attention back to the self, in association with it, we become more and more ripen, or our unripeness will go away, will be eliminated by getting in touch with the ripe one, the self. That was very beautifully brought out. Otherwise, if the disciple says, in order for me to achieve that ripeness, I think I have understood that I have to achieve the ripeness. Therefore, I will leave my world, leave my job, leave all my assignments, and do sadhana in ekanta. It is like he has given the reality to the world and then thinks that by doing the sadhana, which is again in the world, that he will get back to the self. So it's like sticking the stamp on the envelope by saying that the world is my source of trouble, and by that we are given the reality to the world. So we have glued the stamp to the envelope, and then I will go in ekanta and try to remove the stamp from the envelope. So it's such a false approach. All we need to do is here and now find that the self is free of the world. It's free of everything. It's already ripe. And that all we need to do is our ideas of unripenness, or our individual notions, which is the source of all unripenness, has to be inquired. And we need to get back into that self, or get associated, become one with it, with inquiry. And that very association removes all the things that are unripe in us and makes the fruit fall. Even in the midst of all the samsara, Bhagavan goes on to give the examples and explanation that Nandakumarji also brought out very beautifully. A sannyasi who thinks a sannyasi is still attached to the idea of sannyasa. A samsari who doesn't think who is a samsari is free and is truly the sannyasi. So the clarity that was given to us is that the self alone is the only thing which is capable of being free, even in the midst of everything. And therefore, getting in touch with that self, being one with it, in whatever which way we can, either through inquiry with effort or effortlessly, that is all that one needs to do. And in these two verses, it was very beautifully brought out how the Guru, the Self, and the God, which Nandakumar ji started, is the only thing which is capable of removing all the non-self for all of us. So with ekagrata, with ekagra bhakti to that one truth, let us continue to do our sadhana. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana sir. Thank you very much. Namo.
Jai.
Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana sir, ellarigu Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana sir. Namo Ramana to all.
Namo Ramana
Namo
sir.
Ramana madam. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana, Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana Vaibhav ji Pratnama. Namo Ramana Dilip ji. Wonderful summing up. Namo Ramana to all.
Namo Ramana sir, Namo Ramana to all.
Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana sir.
Namo Ramana madam. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana sir.